Hello and welcome to the podcast Placed by Mahmood. And today's our guest is Alex Williams. So he's a content marketer and host of multiple podcasts. And awesome fact about him is like he lived in a car for a whole month. Yeah.
I did. Yeah, that's so long ago now. I sometimes forget that that happened. But yeah, I did live in a car for a month and it was a good time. Might do it again.
Yeah. So like that was like a very unique thing that like that's the thing that caught my eye like for the first time. Yeah. So like I would
I yeah,
like
go ahead, sorry.
yeah, like you can go ahead like yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it is like a weird thing, especially it wasn't a van life thing. I had a full-time job. I had to wake up, go to the YMCA every day. So it was interesting. It was really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so like why did you decided to stay in a car in the first place?
Oh, yeah. I was living with my sister at the time, and we were not great roommates for each other. We had different ideas of how how to keep things clean and organized, and we just weren't getting along as roommates. And I thought, well, why not go spread my wings a little bit and experience something. I had been kind of anti-adventurous my whole life growing up, and when my grandfather died, I'd found out that he in his 20s was super adventurous. He backpacked around the Mediterranean, northern Africa and southern Europe, and slept on a beach in Morocco and did all these crazy things that I never knew about. And I realized I was, being kind of lame with my life. So I decided, maybe a little adventure would be worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like your grandpa seems very daring.
hmm Yeah, yeah, and I mean that was, I guess probably 50 years ago that he did that. Now, right? There wasn't the internet. There wasn't, he didn't have a satellite phone he could use or anything. He was just out there, and so I figured I better get out there myself and try something.
And do amazing stuff. Yeah,
hmm Yeah.
absolutely. So tell us a bit more about yourself.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Calgary, Canada. A beautiful place. If you drive west, you're straight into the mountains. If you drive east, it's prairies. I mean, flat as far as the eye can see. And so we kind of have everything here. It gets pretty toasty in summer and super cold in winter, and long summer days and short winter nights or short winter days. So it's I don't know. That's really the biggest thing I identify with. I also come from a big family, and that's really important to me. I do a lot of podcasting with my family, and so that's always been a big thing for me. I'm the second oldest of seven, so
Oh
I
my
uh,
god.
I like being a big brother. It's a good time.
Yeah, like that's a pretty big family, like, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It is a big family, but I love it. It's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Like how like what's this like experience or like how do you feel being the second oldest brother of like seven family members?
That's a good question. And something I ask people who come from smaller families or are younger in the family. I always ask them about that. And I never realize how difficult of a question that is, because it's my experience, right? I guess to the younger ones, because I was moved out while they were still younger, I kind of feel like a fun uncle who gets to show up and hang out with them, right? And to the older ones, we grew up together, we're adults together, and so being the second oldest, it's been kind of, I don't know, it's been an interesting experience. I feel like I got off easy though, because my older sister has to take all the responsibility and pressure of being the bossy one, and I just get to be there and have a good time.
Yeah. Like you were the like cooler older brother and she was like the parent type thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly the dynamic. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah. So
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
yeah, so like we are like like two brothers and one sister. So like I'm the youngest one. So
Hmm.
like I'm on the coolest side, you know.
Yeah, yeah. You're there for fun. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the youngest child always stays cool as hell.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. It's actually true. Our youngest sister, she is definitely the coolest one. You know, she's the one that everybody adores and pampers and appreciates the most, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, that's their bond, right? You know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just how it happens. I mean, you can't argue with it. Um, you get all these older siblings pampering you, especially like my youngest sister has six older siblings to pamper her and to baby her and stuff. And I think sometimes she gets annoyed maybe with the babying stuff. She wants to be a bit more grown up, but what can
Yeah.
you do?
Yeah, like this gets a bit annoying after getting a bit old. Like I don't know,
Mhm.
like yeah, that's true. I can relate. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's like what's the age difference between your like you and your youngest sister?
Our age difference is 12 years. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's 12 years. So she's 13 now, and I'm 25. So yeah, quite the spread. It's kind of weird. She is closer in age to her niece than she is to me. So that's a little bit weird to think about, eh?
Not exactly. Like you have like your seven brothers, like siblings. So
Right,
it
when
is
you've got
this.
that
Yeah.
that many, but it is a strange thing, that when she's my age, our niece will be her age now.
Yo.
Yeah. So that's a very, I don't know, it's just an interesting thing to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. That's true. Yeah. So now, like, how did you like got started with content marketing?
Okay, yeah, so with
Yeah.
content
So
marketing,
yeah.
sorry, did you have
No, no,
more
no,
to
no,
that
no,
question you
no,
wanted to
no.
ask? Content marketing, I started how long ago now? 7 years, I suppose, ago. I started. My friend started a restaurant, and he served pretzel sandwiches and soups and soft pretzels. Just amazing, amazing food. If you're ever in Calgary, go to Around the Bend to eat. It is amazing. So he started this restaurant, and he saw that I was making videos with some of my other friends, and mostly comedy sketches and whatever, right? We had a video camera, and we made stuff with it. And seeing that, he said, "Oh, well, why don't you come in here, take some videos for me, and I'll let you eat the food for free." And so what I started doing is I would go in with my camera, I'd film a sandwich being made, I'd put the video together, I'd edit it together and send it to him or post it on his Instagram or whatever. And then I'd get a free sandwich. And we kind of continued with that arrangement. I had another job. Content marketing was not something that I wanted to do as a career. That's not what I wanted as my job. But I wound up finding a few other clients very slowly over time. Other people saying, "Oh, hey, can you do something like that for me? And what are your prices?" And then I had to think, "Oh man, like what are my prices?" Right? I've
Yeah.
been
So
getting
how
paid
many
in
sandwiches
sandwiches.
I need more?
Yeah, I'm like, one sandwich a video, please. And so I eventually did, figured that out, slowly but surely. And now it just so happens to be at a point where it's my job. It's really been a slow, steady, it's been like finding one new client a year,
Yeah.
overall, and just getting it to the point where now it's my job, right? I started off doing it for sandwiches 7 years ago, and now it's what I do day in, day out.
Yeah. Like that's a really cool story. You know, like yeah. You know what? Like at 18, like a free sandwich was everything you need.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I had another job. I think where was I? I was
uh,
probably doing landscaping at the time, and that was that was my job. I liked that job, and the sandwiches was just free food that I could go get
Yeah.
after work, right? Like I wasn't thinking about it. I always enjoyed it. I always enjoyed that stuff, the content creation, but I never really planned to do it as my job.
As a job.
So yeah, just kind of fell into it.
Yeah, actually. Yeah, I guess at that time content marketing was not that of a big job yet. So
Hmm.
as of right now, it's like quite big. Like
Yeah. Yeah, I think people's awareness of, we need content to communicate with our audience. I think that's becoming more and more what's been going on, what's been happening in the world, because you got to communicate somehow, right? Whether it's through pictures, podcasts, videos, whatever it is that you're making, you got to get your message out there, right? And
absolutely.
spread the word, even if it's just to your existing base, right? To take them from liking what you do and stopping in every few months to loving what you do and coming every month, right? It's just that process of getting your message out there, and I think people have become more and more aware of that. So it works out pretty nicely for me because people are looking for it. People reach out all the time just asking for help with it.
Yeah, like everyone needs help, like suddenly, like especially due to like the lockdown, and everyone was at home, and everyone needs content right now, like because like this is like one of the like golden opportunities where
Hmm.
people are at home and they're using their devices and they don't want to see ads anymore.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly. You want, like, doing content marketing, it lets you communicate with them without it being, a mid-roll ad interrupting their YouTube video, right? It lets it be, oh, hey, this is actually really interesting, right? If you're doing, how-to videos for your business, right? Um, even if it's something that you do, if you do a how-to video for it, people might look at that and say, yeah, it's too complicated, I'll just pay you to come do it for me. Right? Like, it can work really well. And so I'm glad that I fell into it, because it is fun, and I get to make interesting things and work with interesting people too.
yeah, absolutely. So the thing is like when people see someone doing it like so easy, like, and when they start doing it, they think like he made it look so easy. Like how
Hmm.
did he do it? Like and they are not able to do it. Like that's the thing about experience, Like
Hmm.
when you do something for years, months and years, and you gain such like expertise that you can just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they
Yeah.
when they start like they don't have the experience yet, so they need someone and they need it now, so they can't do it
Yeah.
for 5 years.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, my particular expertise is in podcasting. I edit podcasts all day, every day, pretty much, right? And so I'm good at it. Like, I'm used to it. I know what to look for. I know what it should sound like, and I've practiced for over 3 years now on podcasting specifically, and I've learned the craft, right? Anybody can edit a podcast themselves, right? Anybody can make a podcast. It's really simple to start, but it's really hard to get good at it.
Absolutely. Okay, I completely agree with that. Yeah.
Awesome. So when was it that you started podcasting?
So it was basically around like last month, and like I was planning to do it from like way before than that, actually. Like it was around like last month in like between like May to June. Like from that time I was thinking about podcasting. So like I came to know about this through like Gary Vee. So like he's like amazing, and he talks
Okay.
about content and stuff like you do. So
And
like
go
yeah,
ahead, sorry.
yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna ask, like, what is it that you getting into podcasting were like looking to get out of it?
Yeah. So the main goal was to connect with more people, and in the future, as you know, like we will be using more about our phone to search basically. So we
Hmm.
will be talking like hey Google or hey Siri, and like we'll be asking this stuff. And so this will and for talking to with people even, so we'll know Like we'll ask, we'll ask to see, like, hey, ask X person, let's say ask Mahmoud, uh, what's your perspective about this, and we're gonna, like, he's gonna come out, he or she, like the app actually, the system
Yeah.
is gonna come out with this specific answer. Like that's the future, right? If you see like long enough, so we have to keep our mark on the planet. So, and I think podcast is like a very good way, like an excellent way to start in that direction.
Hmm.
So like that technology will take at least 10 to 15 years to come in the market. Like that's the least amount of time. But when we will like reach that mark, so we will have enough content with ourselves, and like for even our business, where we will already have enough perspective in the world, whereas like a large portion of the population of the world will be just starting out because that's a new technology.
Hmm.
And I think like the younger generations will be inclined more to it during the start, and after that people will eventually come on the platform, like start podcasting after a few years. I guess 3 to 4 years, like after the launch it will take at least 3 to 4 years for people to, like mature people, like the business people, to hop in.
Hmm.
Like when like the official launch will come. Other than that, we as like the early users, we are actually taking the advantage of it, because like it's not big, that big yet, though it became quite big during like last year because of pandemic and everyone was at home. But it will actually be a common, like it will be something of daily use.
Hmm.
Like people use every single day and everyone does it, like as we can see in cloud house, like clubhouse, sorry, like it's just audio.
Hmm.
Yes, so it's something similar to podcasting, but it's just a medium of communication just now,
Hmm.
right? So like that was the thing which, like that was the vision with, like with podcasting and me, like for me, you can say.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I've always been huge on the conversations that podcasting opens up. I think that, I mean, you're on the other side of the planet from me, right? Like
Yeah,
it's so cool to be able to have these conversations be thanks to this medium. And I'm excited, like you were talking about where technology is going. I'm excited to see those things continue opening up.
yeah, absolutely. Like these are like most visionary people can say. Like not, I'll not say like most visionary, but like people who are seeing a bit on long term, and who are
Hmm.
actually following like the people who are visionaries, like, or like the people who are thinking about long term. If you're a long term person and you follow something or someone, like, sorry, I said the opposite. So if you are not a visionary, okay, so like if you are not seeing the long term thing, and but you are following someone who is seeing the long term game, or like multiple people, okay, you can see, so you will actually have, like you'll slowly get this thing internally,
Hmm.
that you can predict that this will happen. And because like one people can be wrong most, in most cases, right? Like not like a lot of people, like 10
Hmm.
of 10 tens of people who are actually visionaries, quite visionaries, and it's quite obvious, right? Like in most 9 out of 10 cases, like that's gonna happen.
Hmm.
True.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So like why did you start podcasting at first? Like what motivated you can say?
Yeah, I got started because I was always a bad listener.
Oh.
I would just wait and wait and wait to just tell my story in conversations, and so I started an interview podcast called My Wax Museum. It's still going. We actually just passed our 100th episode and or 100th interview. I've had a few specials and other things that I've done along the way, and it's been really satisfying because I like to think that maybe I've improved my listening skills, that I've been a little bit more thoughtful with people instead of just jumping onto things and uh, and maybe sometimes ruining a conversation because I'm too obsessed with. telling a story that's, less relevant than I think it is.
No, I'll say like we're more obsessed with ourselves. Yeah. Yes,
Hmm.
like everyone is, right. So yeah, that's basically like as a human nature, like everyone is obsessed mainly with themselves.
Yeah.
And like you decided to like let that go and become a good listener. Like that's
Hmm.
like you took that initiative for yourself, and it works, right? It worked. And you like from the first podcast, like I'll dare you to listen to the first podcast that you did, like you ever did, and listen to your latest podcast. You're gonna
Hmm.
like the difference is like from the earth to the sky. Like that's the difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
It's a huge difference. Yeah. I had a friend I told her about my podcast. I said, "Oh yeah, you should give it a listen." And she went back and listened to the very first episode I ever did. And she came back and she's like, "Yeah, I listened." And I said, "Well, what did you think?" And she's like, "Well, interesting." I was like, "Which one did you listen to?" And she said, "Oh, the very first one." I said, "What? No!" Like, why? Why would you do that? Like, why would you do that to yourself and to me to go back and listen all the way to the first one I did? I wasn't as good of an interviewer. I wasn't as good as a listener. I didn't know what questions to ask, how to say things, how to keep the conversation going. And then I didn't know how to edit either. And so it just didn't turn out not even close to as good as the ones I'm doing now.
absolutely, like that happens actually. Like that's the nature, like you're gonna get better at over time. And so
Hmm.
like what would be like your ratio for it? Like what's compared to like your latest podcast and like the first one you did? Like what's the ratio of it? Like
Like, how have I improved? You mean like what?
yeah, in terms of numbers. So how numbers can you get? You can say in terms of multiplications. You can say like 50,000 times.
Oh, okay. Yeah, probably 50,000 times better. It's so, it's night and day. And I mean, equipment isn't everything, but I have better equipment. I've worked harder on the editing. I've just put more time into it as well, right? I care about it more, right? Back then it was, oh, I got to make this thing. And now I'm thinking, no, I have to make something good, right? Like I have to put some effort into it. And I do, and I think it's comes out so much better because of it.
Yeah. So it took from like to make something like to make something good. Like this journey from it to good took around 3 years. Like that's a lot,
Mhm.
like it, and people should know like it takes time. Like from like it doesn't happen overnight. Like it does not becomes good in like just one night. Though it's just a
Yeah.
word, but yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, it takes a lot of time, and when I was doing it, there wasn't as much information about how to start a podcast. There weren't the same tools. The tools that are available now are incredible, absolutely incredible. And so that made a huge difference as well. Is just that change in availability of information and of tools. Back then I was winging it, trying to figure it out.
Yeah. Like I guess the question was like the hardest thing. So like how good of a like conversationals were you back then? Like in terms of like outside of podcasts with normal people, like yeah.
How hard were my conversations back then?
No. Like I mean,
Or
like how good of a conversationalist you were. Like how fluent were you in terms of having conversations with people, other people, outside of podcasts or your friends and stuff.
yeah, I think I was pretty good at conversations. Obviously, I struggled with the listening aspect of it, right? But I've always been a talker. That was part of the problem. And so, my conversations outside of the podcast were just fine. But then when you get onto a podcast, you have to be aware, there are people listening to this, right? Somebody's out there listening to this conversation you and I are having, thinking, oh, ask this question. Oh, think about this next. Oh, what do you mean by that? Right. And so as time went on, I started to realize, right, even you could probably notice that, when we weren't recording and we were just chatting, you and I, the tone of voice that we use is different, right? The way
Yeah,
that we
absolutely.
talk is different. But now that there's an audience, right? As soon as you hit the record button, there's an audience, and then you have to present. So I think I was fine at conversations, but then having conversations on a podcast is such a different skill that you have to work up towards, because you have to be aware people are listening, right? People are listening now in on our conversation. And so there's just a few things that are different, I think. So yeah, I don't know if podcasting's made me a better conversationalist. It may have broken me. I've had some friends say, "Oh, are we on a podcast right now?" When we're just like walking down the street chatting, and they're like, "I feel like I'm on a podcast, Alex," and I'm like, I'm like, "Oops, I'm sorry."
Like I think maybe all people face that. I don't know. Like I haven't faced that yet because I just started. Like
Hmm.
yeah, thanks for warning me
Yeah,
and in advance.
yeah. There's a lot of exciting stuff to come your way.
Absolutely, I'm hoping for it as well. Not the uh, like where are we on a podcast thing, but
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah,
the other amazing things.
yeah.
Yeah, so like that's an awesome topic you said. Like what like other things that you experience in the process, like in your life after starting up the podcast.
I think probably the coolest thing has been other people who I don't know. I've never had a complete stranger walk up to me and say, "Oh, I listened to your podcast. I recognized your voice." I've never had that happen, right? And I don't know if that ever will happen, right? Because I'm not going down the street talking like, "All right, welcome back to My Wax Museum, everybody." Like I'm not doing that. But then I do think that I have had a lot of people who we have mutual friends, and they'll meet me, and we already have this mutual friend, so it's not, like, chances are we were going to meet eventually. But then when they meet me, they're like, "Oh yeah, I listened to blah 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 blah," and I'm like, "Oh," so it has happened where my podcast precedes me, and people have listened to it, and then immediately, like, they recognize me from that. So it has happened, not on like a big famous scale, but just in a casual local, people are like, "Oh yeah, I listened to your podcast." I'm like, "Oh, interesting." It is a weird thing, eh?
Yeah, like that's a really cool thing. Like here in Bangladesh, I guess the podcasting is like not even near closely famous as in Canada or US.
Hmm.
Yeah, so like I don't hope like I don't expect that to happen yet. I
Hmm.
hopefully that will happen in a few years, I
Yeah,
guess.
you might get there someday, and in I feel like you got to enjoy it
Yeah,
before it gets
absolutely.
annoying, like, because I feel like if you get super big, it would become annoying. I'm not there yet. Don't reckon I ever will be. And podcasting is nice because your face is generally hidden, right? So people aren't walking down the street recognizing you.
Yeah, that's cool. So like have it ever feel annoying to you, like people coming to you, like ever, like even a bit? No.
No, no, I'm also a people person, so I enjoy that extra interaction, right? I'll chat with pretty much anybody, right? Like,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
something I enjoy.
yeah, absolutely. Like, what's the initial feeling like when someone says like that? It's like, what's your initial feeling, internal feeling, word, not through words? Like, what's your internal feeling there at that moment?
Uh it's a little bit like oh, uh my first question is always, what did you listen to? Because there are some where I'm like, yeah, that wasn't my best work, right? Like I mentioned with my friend earlier, who listened to my first podcast ever, right? So I do wonder, oh, what did you listen to, right? And sometimes they're like, oh, I listened to this one and it was interesting, and I'm like, well, you might enjoy this one more, and I can kind of point them, hopefully save that a little bit, but there's always a worry, a little bit of a fear.
Yeah. No, I mean, like the first thing, like there will always be worry, right? Like there will always be like, yeah, that was not my best. Like that was not my best. Yeah, there
Yeah.
will always be something. So like, what is the initial, like that single moment? Like for one moment, how did you feel? I guess you felt cool. Oh yeah, people know me.
Yeah, there is a little bit of coolness, like, oh, like, oh, well, especially if they walk up and they're like, oh, I listened to, and they're excited about it, then you're like, oh, well, look at me, look how cool I am now, right? There is a little bit of that. And I know I'm like making it sound like I'm like famous. I'm not. This happens, like very seldomly, like every few months or something.
But it really doesn't matter. Like at that moment, we feel like a celebrities.
Right, exactly, right? It's I'm not a celebrity, but I
But
feel
it,
like one.
yeah, the exact word. You're not a celebrity, but you feel like a celebrity. Yeah,
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I
yeah,
should let you know as well, I do have to hop off in
yeah.
like 10 minutes here.
Yeah, okay. I'll just um we'll make it keep it really short right now. So yeah,
Perfect.
absolutely, absolutely. So yeah. So last thing. So what advice would you give to your younger self?
My younger self, depends what stage he was at. If it was right when I started podcasting, I would tell him to, take the time, right? To take the time to put effort into it, to make every single episode that he puts out into something good, right? Take that time, take a moment, don't rush it. Just make it into something good. I would also tell him use social media more because that'll help get the word out. I
Uh,
didn't I didn't use it for my first show till like 2.5 years into it.
oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. 2.5 years without social media, like that's a lot. That's a lot. That's a lot. Like I'm a I've started promoting before I launched. Yeah.
You have to. Yeah.
Yeah, this too. So like how many podcast shows were you doing like before, like at the very beginning? Like I don't mean shows but episodes.
Oh, I was doing one a week
One
is
a week. So
yeah.
was there any specific topic or like random stuff?
No, it was so on My Wax Museum, it's I sit down and I interview somebody that I know. I just ask them questions about their life, where they're from, what they're doing. Um like are you asking me about like what I made like when I first
No.
started?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. The first thing, like as like the first podcast, like first time podcast, like what topic did you started working? Like you started on podcasting. Like my topic, I guess, is on like podcast. Like I'm trying to do twice a week. Once on like entrepreneurship, basically, and
Mhm.
second is with stories or interesting perspective. Like that's the second topic.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. So on My Wax Museum, it was just me sitting down for an hour asking questions to somebody that I knew just to practice listening. And I still do it the exact same way. I changed it up just slightly, but the format stayed basically the
yeah,
same. I just asked people where they're from, what they've done, what they're doing, and what they want to do.
yeah, absolutely, got it. Yeah, that's a good, very good place to start. I will
Mhm.
agree because like we don't know actually. The thing is like we don't know what niche to select or like what to do
Right.
yet.
Well, and I mean, like I said, it was to practice my listening skills, right? It was to work on that and to try and improve that, and specifically improve it by sitting down with people from my life, right? People that I just so happen to know, right? That I, you know, meet wherever, even if they're like a grocery store clerk, right? I haven't done that yet, but I might. I've been thinking about it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, that's really really cool. Like from the different people and their perspective in life. Like
Hmm.
everyone has their own point of view. Really
Yeah,
cool point of
exactly.
view.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Everybody has a different story to share.
Yeah, okay. So the last thing, actually, like second last thing, I would like to like ask you, like, what's your perspective about like the education system and like the education in general?
So I mean, education systems are really complicated, and it really depends where you live. I mean, in Canada, each province has its own education system. I'm interested in education. I was studying to be a high school teacher, and so it's something that I think about and that fascinates me. I I don't know. Even though I was moving in that direction for my career, I still feel so undereducated on it. I think there are so many things that we need to improve, and I think we need to be willing to experiment more. Even though you don't want to experiment on children, right? You don't want to experiment on them and like make them guinea pigs. But at the same time, we got to try things out. We got to try a few different things. And I think if we just make those efforts to try and tweak things and to make those improvements, I think the world would be a much better place.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Like education system, like are a very interesting topic for me. So like we would have like gone a bit deep if we had time actually. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and I'm sorry, I got to run today. Today's a busy day. Otherwise, I'd stay
Yeah,
forever.
that's
All I do
that's
is
completely okay.
podcasting.
Yeah, that's completely okay. That's completely understandable. So, like, any last word that you wanna share? Like, any last word or anything?
Yeah, don't take anything too seriously. Just enjoy, let it be fun, right? You're just starting out in your podcasting journey. I think that, you know, with that, just have a good time, put some effort into it, but make sure you're enjoying it. And I take that advice into everything that I do. Don't take it too seriously. Just, be along for the ride. Do your best, but don't don't let it ruin your life. That's
Yeah, absolutely true. I'll
yeah.
keep that in mind, and hopefully that will be very valuable for our listeners. And the last thing, where can our listeners find you, online or offline?
Yeah. Yeah, so if you want to find me and everything that I do, especially podcasting, as far as podcasting goes, especially with me and my siblings, you can go to mechoradio.com. That's MECHO radio.com. It's just the word echo with an M in front of it, radio.com. So that's where we put up all our podcasts. We have a whole variety of things depending what you're listening to. Like I mentioned, My Wax Museum, that's the show I've been running the longest. Don't start with the first episode. Listen to the most recent. Then I would say we also have Broken Bulbs, which is perfect for entrepreneurs and creative types. We also have uh, Open Books with Claire, Dad on Money. We've got tons of stuff going on right now. So would love for anybody to check it out. That would be cool.
Yeah, that would be really cool. I'm sure like people among my listeners are interested in entrepreneurship for sure. Like that,
Hmm.
like I'm sure like people will surely hop in. And yeah, that will be it for today. I guess this podcast brought some value to our listeners. And by this, we're ending the podcast. And thanks, Alex, for joining this podcast. I highly appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.